Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new here or if you're not, my name is Natalie and well, welcome. Today being Friday and also it being October, I think that means today is Freaky Friday. And if you haven't guessed yet, this sort of filter that's on top of this segment of the video is a hint as to what character I am doing today for Freaky Friday. And might I say, I am quite excited, because this is definitely one of my favorite films growing up when I was little. And I kind of had an obsession with it because of the animation and also because the concept of the story is so intricate. So, watch me turn from this and body swap with the one and only...
I can feel no pain. If you cut me with a knife, it's still the same. Yet the pain here that I feel, try and tell me it's not real. And it seems that the windows lock the door. It's late at night and I hear footsteps on the floor. Blood is freezing in my lips. Well, is it real or is it just October things?
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. And as I said before, today is Friday, so I'm doing another transforming Freaky Friday into a character. And today, as you guys can see, I have decided to become Corpse Bride, or the Corpse Bride, Emily. And I decided to put in these contacts. They're called the zombie contacts, where it's like, it makes your pupil, it's only your pupil, and then the rest of your eye is white. And I decided to do that because I feel like inside of the images of her face and stuff, she doesn't really have a huge pupil. The drawings of the different Tim Burton characters all have very tiny little pupil. I forgot to do my eyebrows. Anyway, I forgot to do a step in this because I had to put down my eyebrows in order to redraw my eye, because I decided to actually make her big, huge eyes, because her character design has huge, ginormous eyes, so I decided to do that. But in order to do that, I needed to put down my eyebrows, and I did the same method that I did last week with the glue stick and using a flat object, and then I covered my whole face in blue. I decided to do this character because this character is definitely a character that I have loved since I was little. If you don't know, Emily is the second main character in the Corpse Bride film, and she's basically the reason why the plot is why it is and why it works. She's a character that has suffered a horrible, tragic backstory and has died. And I'm not going to ruin for you if you've never seen the movie, but her backstory will make you really sad. Plus, there's like a bop of a song for it, so you should definitely watch it. But I think that the character in itself, I wanted to give it justice because she's definitely a character that I have looked up to a lot, and she creates sacrifice, she creates understanding in a way that I feel like not a lot of films are able to capture. And she's the type of character where you want to root on for her. Whether or not it works out for her or not, I'm not sure, but it's definitely a character that makes you want to root on for her because she's so wonderful, and you kind of want her to be the main character instead of the second main character. Really? Anyway, I decided to copy the same thing as the cartoon instead of trying to make it more of a humanized version of myself, because I've seen a lot of people doing Tim Burton looks where they just kind of keep their normal eyes, keep their normal features, just kind of like carve out their cheekbones and stuff. But I decided to actually follow the cartoon and try to turn the 2D cartoon into my face. So her eyes are significantly bigger than mine, so I had to block out this whole section here for her eyeball and her eyelid. And since I already wore the contacts that have a smaller pupil, I decided I wasn't going to draw a pupil on top of that because it seemed redundant, and I also want to be able to see. So this is me putting in the highlights. I already put in a few of the darker shades to map out the areas of the eye socket on that side. And now I'm adding the little highlights and stuff. I also had to figure out how to highlight in a way that made sure that it looked like I didn't have like a nose, which was difficult. Because if you look at the character, she actually doesn't have a nose because she's dead. She's a corpse. So I had to figure out how to do that and figure out where the highlights were. I was going very much based on the images and the cartoon, um, and not so much based on what I thought would work in terms of my brain. I just kind of followed the image because I felt like that was best, and if I felt like if I went a little bit too far from the image, it wouldn't be accurate. But here's me adding the highlights and the eyebrows as well. And the eyebrows I will go over again with a black eyeliner, but at this point in time, I'm just marking where it is. And here's me blending it out with a beauty blender because I found that it blended better on my face and flatter on my face if I use a beauty blender. The process of me doing this look, I used a lot of different highlights, darkens, like I said before. This is kind of just the way that I do it. And this one was definitely more difficult than the one last week because there were so many layers and there were so many different components compared to Frankenfurter. If you haven't seen that video yet, you should definitely go check that out. Here's me adding powder to set everything in place. I decided to do one half of my face and then do the other half because I wanted to do something different with the other eye, which you'll see later. But to start, I wanted to start out with the eye that I could actually see. And here's me adding a little more darks to it. And then I started to add shading to my nose as well in order to make it look the same as the image. The shading's a little bit weird. It kind of feels like I'm shading the opposite of what I would normally contour. But it was kind of an interesting debacle that I had to figure out. I went in with another palette on top of that. I used a lot of different palettes while doing this look because not all palettes have like really prominent whites, not really prominent blues, not really prominent darker shades, etc. So I had to use a lot of different palettes, and this is me going over the white parts with some white eyeshadow to make sure that the white pops. Then going over the eyeball again to make sure the white pops as well.
Oh!
This is me going over the lining so that then it's more prominent and not just shadows. Also, this way it's like more like in your face that it's there. Because yeah, shading is important, but also defining the actual lines is important as well. It's actually one of the more important steps. Here's me doing her nose. And then from there, I moved on to her little cheek area here. Her cheek area actually has this little hole, and if you watch the film, you can see there are moments where, like, you can see her teeth through the hole. There are moments where anyway, there are moments where you can see her teeth. There are moments where it's just dark. I tried to keep her teeth in there because I thought it was more interesting and add more coloring and more shading to the look, so I decided to keep her teeth. This method, in terms of doing these types of illusions, is actually my specialty. When I was younger, I used to do a lot of SFX makeup, and I mostly only did illusions. I don't actually use like clays or prosthetics or anything like that, but instead I make illusions, and this is kind of something that I've been really good at, and I can go over this a little bit more in depth in another video if you'd like, so please comment down below if that's something you would enjoy seeing. But essentially I do the same thing as I do usually, where I do darks, lights, darks, lights, darks, lights, and then continue to do that until I fidget it, until I like it. I also just noticed that there's like a lot of powder on my shoulder. That will disappear soon. And then here's a close-up of me doing the little extra shadings, little extra details. I know it's a little bit hard to see because it's like smaller on my face compared to like if I were to do a whole chunk of my face missing. But it is kind of like a nice little starting point of doing like the more gory types of SFX, more gory types of makeups in comparison to like Frankenfurter last week. This part was definitely my favorite part, to be honest, because this is something that I know I'm good at and I felt very confident in. dramatic. And then I started to shade a little bit more because I lost some of the color. And then I started to shade the actual eye because her eye, since she is a cartoon, she's not actually 2D. You can see that she's 3D. So the actual shape of her eye actually has dimension. So I had to actually shade the eyeball, which, to be honest, I wouldn't have expected, but I did need to do that. And then I started to map out the other eye. The other eye, I wanted to do something different. I thought about also doing like just an eyeball, but I thought that was a little bit boring. And I saw this one image of Emily with the maggot friend coming out of her eye, and I wanted to recreate that. So I basically just mapped out where the eye socket area would be, where the eyebrow would be, put in lights, put in shading, and then I went in with a darker black and filled in the gaping hole of the socket, but kept a little sketch of the maggot on my eye, which you'll see in a little bit after I finish shading and highlighting around the eye socket. I decided to do everything around first so that I wouldn't have to worry about it later. I'm not sure if that's something I would do again, but to be honest, I think that it worked for this time. I think next time I would do that after because I realized while I was doing the inside of my eye, I was starting to get stains on my cheek because my cheek was supposed to be purely white. And I went over it again later to make it whiter, but like it would have been something I could have prevented if I just did that after. In comparison, it's just me adding more highlights to the bottom of my face because I realized I focused mostly here instead of the bottom. And the bottom was pretty important as well to make her face look more like a skeleton, make the shading more prominent. There we go. And then here's me mapping out the little maggot friend. He's adorably tiny. Compared to my eye, he's tiny, but in the cartoon, he looks like he literally pushes her eyeball out. So like he needs to be bigger. But I wish I drew him bigger, but I did not. So it's okay. It's fine. I think I did pretty good. So I mapped out his shape approximately, not exactly, so that then I could fill in the rest of the space with black. And as you see, I like get smudges on my cheeks, so I had to go over it again with some white again to make it more prominent. And then I went in with some eyeshadow, like the blue eyeshadow that I used to make the shading around the eye to go over the top of the lines between the black and the shadow so it looks more merged together. And then I used white to highlight the little edges because it's an eye socket, so there's like an edge that goes down and then in, right? So I had to make it so it looks like an edge. So I had to highlight the edges, and then I also created this little extra little lighting in the inside to show that there's like a tunnel going into my eye. That part didn't really show as much as I wanted it to, but that was the purpose as to why I did that. And then here's me adding more shading, more lighting, just to make sure that it looks nice on the outside as well as the inside. And then from there, I used some green from the same Glistening Cosmetics set, the same ones that I used, the white and the blue and the black. And I went in to fill my little maggot friend, and I also used the pink, also from the same line, to do his eyes and his mouth. I also ended up taking a break from him and trying to do my lips as Corpse Bride, as Emily, but I also noticed her lips are the same color as the maggot's eyes, which is a pink. Like, it's actually a light pink, which I had never noticed before, but it looked really weird together with the rest of the look, especially since her lips are a lot wider than mine, and they have more of a curve than mine do. And I ended up changing that later. So what you see right now is not going to stay, but it'll change. And then I started to add highlights to my little maggot friend to make him more 3D, to make him appear better. And then I went in with the black and started to create the lines of his little rims and also do his little face details. And this is what it turned out to be. And then I also decided to add some eyelashes because she actually has some gnarly eyelashes on both eyes. But I didn't add it to the other eye because I noticed in the scenes where the maggot pushed her eyeball out, she didn't have lashes anymore, which is interesting to me. Because wouldn't you still have your eyelid and your eyelashes? But anyway, I wasn't the type to. I'm not gonna question the cartoon that I really enjoy. But yeah, and this is me redoing the lips because I just didn't like them. And that was it.
Okay. Hey guys. This is the final look, I think. It took a lot of teetering with, figuring out what I wanted to do, what I wanted it to look like, and even then, like, there are improvements definitely I think I could have done, but it's, you know, I put in a lot of work into it, so it's like, I don't really know if I want to even do any more. Like, I'd like to make my nose look smaller, because her nose is like itty bitty, so I'd like to make it look smaller. Let's see if I can. Just real quick. It's so messy. Like my workspace right now is kind of crazy. Okay, we're gonna make the nose a little bit smaller.
Unit heading up to the code 3 chase. Suspect was last reported southbound on Highway 99.
Never mind. It only looks good if it's pointed up like that. It's fine, whatever. The look I did last week was way easier, so this is kind of like diving into the deep end a little bit. The part to me that was easiest, I feel like, was either doing this worm or doing this area here, but like in terms of like the shapes versus like what it looks like on a cartoon, it was a bit hard to like adjust it and move it into a 3D space on my face, especially since like we're not the same face shape, as well as the fact that like her lips are like weirdly bright pink, but it doesn't look that way because in the animation you don't even notice it. Sorry, I'm gonna close this eye so it looks more normal. It's interesting and I like it. It's just, it was very difficult for me to do, and it wasn't necessarily something I expected to be as difficult for me, but it was, I want to blame it on the fact that I'm out of practice, okay? But I think that this turned out pretty okay, all things considered. So I'm gonna try to paint my body a little bit and then be back in my final form. Hey guys, this is the final look. I don't know if you guys can tell, but all of these items here are from Amazon. So they're not the greatest. They don't match exactly with the character. Her hair is darker. This is really light. But yeah, I think I did a pretty okay job with all things considered. At times I can be a little bit harsh on myself in terms of how well I do things, but I think I'm being a little bit harsh on myself saying that I actually have a lot of criticisms of how I feel like I could change this. Like, I wish I could change the nose, but my nose is already kind of bigger than hers because she doesn't have a nose, and there's no way for my nose to be a not nose. Unless I'm, you know, the one who should not be named. Anyway, and all things considered, I think I did pretty okay. I'm trying my best, and recently have been trying to practice, you know, positive self-talk, and you know what? I think I did great. So, thank you for being here this Friday. So happy to be doing the second Freaky Friday of the month. So sad that there's only so many Fridays in October, but thank you for being here. It really means a lot to me. Please comment, like, and subscribe, share it around, etc. And definitely comment down below other characters you'd like me to do, or if there's something you feel like I did really well.
Hey guys, it's me again. I decided to come into this little segment here to talk a little bit about how I was feeling and why this video is a little bit short and I'm lacking a little bit of footage. I would have liked to have a segment where I was talking a bit more about how I did and the process of me going through it and the positive things of me going through it, but if I'm being entirely honest, after I shot the end clips, I cut off the camera and I went to go take it off immediately. I felt really uncomfortable and really unhappy with my work. And this is a byproduct of me being a perfectionist and being someone who has a lot of trouble accepting or seeing the fact that my work is actually better than I think it is. I have a lot of imposter syndrome, and me looking at it now after a few days after I filmed the fact, I regret that I did not film more and be able to talk more positively about myself. But me now understands that my work was wonderful. I did a pretty good job, and I think that it's really good to try to think positively. And I was lucky enough that when I did this video, I took pictures of myself and I sent it to my best friend and I sent it to my boyfriend, and both of them gave me validation that the look was actually a really good one and that I did a really good job. Even though I couldn't see it yet, now I see it. I see the beauty in it. I can sit back and realize that the work that I did is a separation of who I am. It's a part of me. It is something that I did. It's my face, but I have a separation from it, so I feel less or like suffocating of trying to make it perfect. And all I needed was just to step back and have a moment. And in reflection, I think that it turned out to be a really good look. I also realized that a lot of the things that I was criticizing were certain things that I personally am very self-conscious about myself. For example, my nose, which I mentioned a lot. But there's no possible way for me to just not have a nose. There are times where I don't like my nose. I think my nose is too big for my liking, but through the years I've learned to like it more and more. And like anything else, it takes practice, it takes time, it takes progression, it takes repetition of positive thinking and positive speaking to yourself. And I just need to practice more. And I know that I'll get better. And I know that if I do this look again, I will do better. But yeah, I'm glad that you guys watched through this video and hopefully you enjoyed it. So yes, listen to what I said before. Please comment down below any character that you would like to see in the future. And also please come back next week. Next week's look is definitely going to be a good one. I put a lot of hard work and time into it, and I'm still editing the footage right now. But I want you guys to remember that sometimes you have expectations for yourself, and maybe those expectations won't always be met, and sometimes perfectionism gets the better of us. But it's important to have a support system, have people who remind you the reality of your imposter syndrome, and also remind you and remind yourself that sometimes taking a break from it is important, and when you come back, you might see something entirely different.
Whatever you're doing, wherever you are, thank you for watching. Good morning, good night, goodbye, from me and the maggot.